Now that we'll have a grandchild, obviously it makes it even more obvious to try and make sure we leave them something that isn't a totally poisoned chalice.
What started as a private moment between King Charles and Princess Charlotte became a turning point for the entire royal family, one filled with emotion, surprise, and an unexpected message that left Queen Camilla stunned.
And I don't want to be confronted by my future grandchild saying, why didn't you do something? So clearly, now that we'll have a grandchild, obviously it makes it even more obvious.
Why did the king make such a bold move? What does it mean for the future of his grandchildren and the monarchy itself? From hidden documents to growing family divides, this story goes far deeper than anyone imagined. Over the years, King Charles has taken on many roles: heir to the throne, Prince of Wales, husband, father, and now monarch. But more recently, one role seems to be bringing out a new side of him, one that few expected to see so clearly, that of a grandfather. Those closest to him say it's a role he has grown into with real affection, and possibly one that has reshaped his approach to life and leadership. People within the royal household have quietly observed changes in how the king chooses to spend his time. There's a growing sense that family life, particularly time with his grandchildren, has taken on greater importance. Charles is now grandfather to 5 children: Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, the children of Prince William and Princess Catherine, and Archie and Lilibet, the children of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. While public interaction with Harry's children has been limited due to the family's decision to live a more private life in the United States, the king's relationship with George, Charlotte, and Louis has become more visible and, according to insiders, more personal. Royal aides say the shift in focus has been gradual but meaningful. Appointments in his diary are increasingly adjusted to allow for visits or time with the children. What once might have been a packed schedule of state meetings and official engagements now includes quieter moments that rarely make the headlines but seem to matter deeply to the king. At Windsor Castle, small but noticeable changes have taken place. One former formal meeting room has been redesigned as a space for children. Bookshelves that once held historic documents and serious biographies now contain children's books, puzzles, and soft toys. Art supplies sit ready on low tables, with crayons, paintbrushes, and paper carefully organized. It's not what most people would expect from a royal workspace, but it reflects a personal choice by the king to make his home more inviting for the younger members of the family. Even in areas typically untouched by family life, like the palace kitchen, things have changed. Staff now keep snacks and treats on hand in case George, Charlotte, or Louis drop by. According to a longtime household employee, King Charles himself has occasionally asked for certain snacks to be prepared before the children arrive. While that might not sound unusual in most families, it's a small but telling break from royal tradition, where such details would typically be left to others. One moment that stood out took place during a recent private family gathering, when King Charles spent nearly an hour helping Prince Louis build a tall structure out of wooden blocks. Witnesses said that Louis kept changing the design, knocking it over and starting again, but Charles never seemed frustrated. When an aide quietly entered the room to remind him of an upcoming meeting, the king simply smiled and asked them to wait, choosing to remain with his grandson instead. These stories, though not widely reported, offer a clearer image of how Charles is approaching this phase of life. It's not simply about enjoying his grandchildren's company. It seems to be about building something more meaningful, offering them a sense of connection and support, and perhaps making up for things that were missing when he was a young father. Many royal observers have noted that Charles's relationship with William and Harry has at times been complicated. Duty, distance, and public pressure often made emotional closeness difficult. But with the grandchildren, it appears those barriers don't exist in the same way. Charles is free to just be grandpa without the weight of history or responsibility clouding the relationship. It's a dynamic that allows him to be more relaxed and emotionally open, and people around him have said it's changed his energy for the better. Among the 3 children of William and Kate, each has a unique bond with their grandfather. Prince George, as the future heir, shares conversations with Charles that are said to touch on responsibility and leadership. Charlotte and the king often connect over creativity and a love of nature. Louis, the youngest, brings a sense of playfulness that Charles seems to enjoy deeply. Rather than treating them as young royals in training, he engages with them as individuals, with their own personalities, interests, and needs. One staff member who has worked with the king for many years said that Charles now keeps drawings and notes from the children displayed in his private study. They're not hidden away or formally framed. They sit openly on his desk or propped against bookshelves. Sometimes they're little sketches or messages written in a child's handwriting. These things may appear small, but they seem to matter a great deal to him. Even during busy days filled with state documents and political briefings, he makes time to pause and look at them. This shift in focus isn't something that has gone unnoticed by other members of the royal family. Some see it as a natural part of growing older, an appreciation for family that deepens with age. Others view it as part of Charles's broader effort to redefine what monarchy means in the 21st century. Instead of relying only on ceremony and public duty, he appears to be building connections that are more personal and emotionally rooted. There are also signs that Charles is trying to create traditions of his own. During family stays at Balmoral, he often takes the grandchildren on early morning walks. He shows them the local wildlife, points out plants and birds, and shares stories about nature and conservation, topics that have always been close to his heart. These walks are not official or photographed. They're private, slow, and filled with conversation. They're about passing on values more than lessons. Even holiday moments have taken on new meaning. Birthdays and important family dates are now marked with handwritten letters from the king to each grandchild. Unlike standard royal correspondence, these letters are written by hand, sometimes decorated with small drawings or personal comments. In them, Charles talks about what the children have been doing, what he's proud of, and what he hopes they'll remember. According to palace sources, these letters are kept and reread by the children, making them not just sweet gestures, but meaningful keepsakes. This more involved, emotionally present version of Charles is a contrast to how he was often portrayed in earlier decades. While he has always been known for his intelligence and passion for causes, he was sometimes criticized for being distant or overly formal in family matters. Now, however, people close to him say that he seems more grounded and at ease than ever before, especially when surrounded by his grandchildren. It's worth noting that none of this means Charles has abandoned his royal duties. He still carries out state responsibilities and attends key events, but the difference lies in what he chooses to prioritize during his private time. Where once there might have been endless briefings and public appearances, now there is also space for laughter, story time, and even the occasional tower of wooden blocks. For years, Camilla has played a careful and respectful role within the royal family. She has never tried to step into a spotlight that wasn't meant for her, and she has worked steadily to build trust among the public, the family, and palace staff. Despite the challenges of entering royal life later than most, she adapted. She supported her husband through his transition from Prince of Wales to King and maintained a steady presence through times of personal and public difficulty. In many ways, her strength has been in her ability to stay quietly reliable. But as Charles's attention increasingly turns toward George, Charlotte, and Louis, Camilla has begun to feel the ground shift slightly beneath her. On the surface, she continues to perform her duties with grace, but those closest to her have started to notice signs that something isn't sitting quite right. Her expressions are slightly tighter, her conversations a little more guarded. It's not that she disapproves of Charles spending time with the children. In fact, she understands how important that connection is. But the way it's happening, so focused, so emotional, and increasingly independent of her, has begun to raise quiet concerns. The first moment that truly unsettled Camilla reportedly happened one afternoon as she walked past the king's private study. She intended only to leave a note about an upcoming engagement, but as she stepped inside, her eye caught a document sitting open on the desk. It was marked clearly in the king's handwriting, "For Charlotte, my wishes and hopes." She didn't open it, and she didn't ask questions. But the simple fact that this document existed, and that she hadn't heard about it before, left her feeling unexpectedly shaken. It wasn't only the content of the document that troubled her. It was the realization that something significant was being prepared without her knowledge. Camilla and Charles had always spoken openly about family matters. Their marriage was built on understanding and mutual respect. But now, for the first time, she felt like a part of that inner circle was closing off. Just slightly, but enough to notice. After leaving the study, Camilla reportedly called her sister. According to those familiar with the conversation, her tone was tense. She didn't accuse or complain, but she spoke of feeling different, like something important was unfolding around her but not with her. She didn't have evidence or full knowledge, just a strong instinct that she was being slowly edged out of a new family conversation. In the days that followed, her sense of exclusion deepened. One morning, while walking past a partially open door, Camilla overheard a quiet conversation between Charles and one of his senior aides. They were discussing plans for Prince William and Princess Catherine's children. She couldn't catch every word, but the tone was serious. When she stepped into the room, the conversation abruptly changed. The quick shift in topic didn't go unnoticed. It was clear that they had been talking about something significant, and that she wasn't meant to be part of it. Later, she tried to bring up Charlotte's birthday casually, asking Charles what the plans were and whether any gifts had been chosen. His answers were unusually brief, vague even. He didn't meet her eyes in the way he usually did. That was when her concern began to grow into something more unsettling. Charles had always included her in personal matters, especially anything to do with the family. Now, it seemed he was intentionally holding something back. It wasn't long before Camilla started to see other small signs. Staff members who used to update her on arrangements involving the Wales children began going directly to Charles. Her opinions, once routinely asked for, were now skipped. At first, she tried to tell herself it was nothing, just busy schedules or shifting roles. But over time, the pattern became harder to ignore. Camilla had always understood her position in the royal family came with limitations. She never expected to replace Diana in the public's heart, nor did she try. Her approach was one of patience, building relationships slowly, offering support when needed, and never overstepping. And for the most part, that strategy had worked. But now, with the king forming such a deep bond with Charlotte, and by extension her siblings, Camilla couldn't help but feel that she was, once again, standing at the edges of something deeply personal and important. The growing emotional focus on Charlotte in particular seemed to carry echoes of the past. Comparisons to Diana had always made Camilla uncomfortable, not because of insecurity, but because they reopened old wounds. Diana's legacy remains a powerful presence within the family, especially where her grandchildren are concerned. To see that legacy honored so directly, and with such affection, stirred emotions that Camilla had long kept in check. She also began to notice changes in Charles himself. He was more withdrawn during their private time, often lost in thought, sometimes distracted. When she asked him about his mood, he said little, always polite, but slightly distant. One evening over dinner, she decided to ask him directly about the document she had seen on his desk. She didn't accuse, but simply said she'd noticed it and wondered what it was. Charles paused for a long time before replying. He eventually said, "Some things between a grandfather and his granddaughter are meant to stay private." The words were said calmly, without irritation, but their meaning stayed with her. For the first time, Camilla understood that Charles was creating something personal and lasting that did not include her. He wasn't being unkind. He was simply choosing to keep this part of his relationship with Charlotte separate, personal, and unshared. As Charlotte's birthday approached, Camilla tried to regain her usual balance. She went through the motions, selecting an outfit, preparing for the day, but those close to her noticed something different. She changed her mind several times about what to wear. Her usual calm during morning briefings was gone. She seemed distracted, less focused, occasionally lost in thought. One of her aides described her mood as unsettled in a way we haven't seen before. She eventually reached out to an old friend, someone from her pre-royal life. In a rare moment of openness, she admitted that she felt unsure of where she stood. Not because of public opinion, but because of the shift she was sensing in the family dynamic. She didn't cry or show anger, just a quiet unease, a feeling that something deeply important was changing, and that she hadn't been part of deciding what that change would look like. The room had been decorated with Charlotte in mind. Pastel-colored bunting lined the walls, and tables were set with floral arrangements that reflected her love for nature. Books she enjoyed were stacked nearby, along with some art supplies for the younger children. The simplicity of the setup made it feel more like a family home than a royal estate. In one corner, Prince Louis was happily playing with a toy train, while George chatted quietly with a family aide. Charlotte, meanwhile, stood calmly beside her parents, unaware that something more significant than cake and gifts was coming. King Charles arrived earlier than expected, carrying with him a red leather box stamped with the royal crest. Usually these boxes contain state documents, but this one was different. Those who saw it immediately noticed its presence. He placed it gently on a side table and greeted his family warmly. He moved with purpose, but without rush. Staff who knew his rhythms well sensed that he had something important on his mind. As the morning went on, gifts were opened, laughter echoed around the room, and the mood stayed light. But when it came time for King Charles to present his gift, he asked the room for a moment of quiet. He didn't ask everyone to leave, but the way he phrased his request made it clear that what he was about to do mattered. The family gathered around as Charles slowly knelt in front of Charlotte. It's rare for a monarch to lower himself like that, but this wasn't a moment for ceremony. It was a moment of connection. He began by speaking to Charlotte directly, his voice calm but sincere. He told her how proud he was of the way she carried herself, not just in public, but in private moments as well. He praised her attentiveness to others, her natural kindness, and her curiosity about the world around her. He acknowledged that she was still young, but said he had seen in her a kind of awareness and emotional intelligence that gave him hope for the future. Charlotte stood silently, listening. She didn't fidget or look away. Observers say she was focused entirely on her grandfather's words, as though she understood this wasn't just a birthday speech. It was something more. Then, from the leather box, Charles retrieved a small velvet pouch. Inside was a delicate pendant, made from intertwined strands of gold and silver, with initials engraved on it. The initials belonged to family members from both past and present. Charles explained that the design was meant to symbolize connection and legacy, a reminder that family isn't only about titles or tradition, but about shared history and the future they would build together. Charlotte accepted the pendant with quiet grace. But that wasn't the end of the moment. Next, Charles opened an envelope and removed an official-looking document. His tone shifted slightly, becoming more formal without losing its warmth. He announced that, in honor of Charlotte's birthday, he had created a new charitable organization, the Princess Charlotte Foundation. It would focus on two areas that he felt needed more attention: children's emotional well-being and the importance of strong, healthy family connections. The room remained silent as he explained that the foundation had been months in the making. It was designed to function independently of other royal charities and would operate with its own guiding principles. The idea, he said, was not to create a typical royal duty, but to give something meaningful to Charlotte, something she could grow into, in her own time and on her own terms. Until that time came, the foundation would be overseen by Prince William and Princess Catherine. Charles emphasized that there was no pressure on Charlotte to take up the role right away, or even at all. It was simply a gift, a seed that could one day grow, depending on what she chose to do with it. This part of the announcement seemed to carry special weight. The king spoke clearly, making it known that the foundation's mission would not change based on internal preferences or external influence. He looked directly at Queen Camilla as he said this, his tone still measured but unmistakably firm. It was a moment of boundary setting, an attempt to protect what he had built from the usual pressures of royal life. Camilla's reaction was reserved, but those in the room noticed the change in her expression. She hadn't been told in advance about the foundation, and the public declaration made it clear that Charles had moved forward with the project on his own. She remained composed, not saying anything, but her surprise was visible to anyone watching closely. Prince William stood beside his daughter with a steady expression. If he was surprised, he didn't show it. Those familiar with the family's inner workings believed that he had been consulted in advance and had quietly supported the idea. Princess Catherine stayed close to Charlotte, occasionally offering her a reassuring smile. Like William, she didn't speak, but her calm and grounded presence suggested she understood the meaning behind her father-in-law's decision. As the king closed his speech, he reminded everyone that the work of the foundation would only succeed if it remained true to its original values: love, support, and emotional strength. He said these were qualities often overlooked in public life, but they mattered deeply to him now. He hoped the foundation would serve as a reminder that the royal family, despite its structure and traditions, was made up of individuals who needed care just like anyone else. When he finished speaking, the room remained still for a few seconds before soft conversation resumed. The celebration continued, but the tone had shifted. This wasn't just a family birthday gathering anymore. It was a significant moment in the life of a young royal, and in many ways, a reflection of the king's hopes for the future. Charlotte, while still too young to fully understand the long-term implications of what had just happened, carried herself with quiet maturity. She thanked her grandfather and later returned to playing with her brothers, as children do. But throughout the rest of the day, the pendant stayed close to her, and her attention occasionally drifted to the document her grandfather had read. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis have become increasingly familiar to the public over the years. Through carefully managed appearances at national events, holiday outings, and royal tours, they have grown up, to some extent, in the public eye. This visibility hasn't been overwhelming or constant, but it has been deliberate. The idea is clear. The public sees them not just as children of the future king, but as symbols of continuity. Their presence at major events sends a quiet but powerful message that the monarchy remains steady and rooted in the next generation. Prince George, the eldest, is already being quietly prepared for his future responsibilities. His appearances are slightly more formal, and he is usually seen at state functions where his role as future monarch is gently reinforced. His manner is often calm and reserved, much like his father's. Charlotte, who is developing her own public presence, brings a sense of composure and confidence that many find impressive for her age. Louis, still young and full of energy, is occasionally the center of lighter moments, often offering the public a glimpse of the family's more human side. Together, these three children represent the future face of the royal family. Their appearances, however brief, help maintain the monarchy's connection to the public. People see them as growing up alongside their own children or grandchildren. They are becoming familiar, even relatable, despite the royal context that surrounds them. In contrast, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's children, Archie and Lilibet, have taken a very different path. From the beginning, Harry and Meghan made it clear that they wanted to protect their children's privacy. Living in California, far from the institutions of the British monarchy, the Sussexes have raised Archie and Lilibet largely out of the public spotlight. Photographs are rare, and public appearances almost non-existent. Their birthdays are acknowledged through personal messages, and any glimpses into their lives usually come through occasional interviews or carefully chosen media. This choice reflects Harry and Meghan's broader approach to royal life, or rather, life after royalty. After stepping back from their official duties, the couple focused on creating a new version of family life, one built around personal freedom, emotional security, and distance from the intense media scrutiny that defined much of Harry's upbringing. For many, it's a completely understandable decision, but it also has implications when seen from the perspective of the institution they left behind. Within the royal family, presence often equals participation. Appearances at national events and visibility in public life are part of how royals connect with the people they represent. It's not simply about media exposure, it's about being seen, recognized, and understood as part of the ongoing story of the monarchy. When someone is consistently absent, even for valid personal reasons, it can slowly affect how the public perceives their role. Some royal watchers have noted that while Archie and Lilibet do carry royal titles, prince and princess, they remain largely unknown to the public. Without a steady presence, the connection between them and the wider royal narrative weakens over time. It becomes harder for people to picture them as part of the institution's future. While their titles exist on paper, their roles remain uncertain. This difference in visibility has created a quiet but growing divide within the public consciousness. While George, Charlotte, and Louis become increasingly familiar, Archie and Lilibet feel more distant. This isn't about blame or criticism, it's simply about how familiarity shapes perception. People remember what they see, and over time, those who remain unseen may begin to feel less present in the collective royal story. Inside the royal family itself, this gap is not spoken about publicly. Relationships are complex, and efforts have been made to keep private matters out of the spotlight. However, the growing distance, both geographic and emotional, between Prince Harry and his family is clear. Public reunions are rare, and joint appearances with William, Catherine, or Charles have been infrequent and, at times, tense. While many hope that time might heal some of the wounds caused by the Sussexes' departure, there is little sign that a full reconciliation is on the horizon. King Charles, now well into his reign, appears to be focusing his attention on the family members who remain active and involved. His deepening bond with George, Charlotte, and Louis is not just about affection. It's about building a future with those who are present. His recent steps, including the creation of the Princess Charlotte Foundation, show a clear intent to support the younger generation emotionally as well as publicly. At the same time, those close to the king have noted a change in his energy. While he continues to carry out his duties, his pace has slowed. He moves more carefully, takes longer breaks between engagements, and is seen more frequently with aides and medical staff nearby. The palace has described these changes as natural adjustments to a demanding role, but insiders have suggested that they reflect a more thoughtful period in the king's life. He is said to be looking back more often, reviewing letters, photo albums, and notes from his earlier years. His conversations with close staff have become more personal, touching on legacy, family, and how he wishes to be remembered. There's a clear sense that he wants his reign, however long it lasts, to be defined by more than tradition. He wants to be remembered as a king who cared about people, not just the nation, but his own family. In this context, the contrast between the paths taken by his grandchildren becomes more meaningful. One set of children is growing up within the fold, learning gradually how to walk the line between public duty and personal identity. The other set is growing up far away, in a life shaped by different values and expectations. Both approaches have their strengths, but only one currently ties directly into the monarchy's evolving narrative. Queen Camilla, too, has adjusted her focus. After the events surrounding Charlotte's birthday and the announcement of the foundation, she appears to have embraced a more supportive role in the changes her husband is making. Those close to her say she now sees the emotional side of Charles's choices more clearly. While she may have felt excluded at first, she now understands that this new phase is less about royal hierarchy and more about lasting impact. For the monarchy as a whole, these family choices matter. The royal institution is built not only on titles and tradition, but also on relationships, both within the family and with the public. How those relationships are maintained, or not, shapes how the monarchy is perceived and understood. As Charles continues to age and reflect, and as the next generation begins to take on more responsibility, the balance between duty and humanity becomes more important than ever. By grounding his legacy in emotional connection and supporting the individual paths of his grandchildren, King Charles is steering the monarchy in a more personal direction. Whether Archie and Lilibet return to that circle someday remains unknown. But what's becoming clear is that the royal family's story is continuing, with or without them, as it moves toward a future that values not just appearances, but intention, support, and heart.